all the dependencies when I go for a Spring Boot application. Okay, so secondly, like the configuration of the server configuration also becomes very easy because we have embedded servers in Spring Boot. So the startup time of the application, right? In my project, I use WebSphere. We are using IBM WebSphere for as the server. So if I make a change, I'll have to start the server. So it takes around 10 to 15 minutes for at least 10 minutes for the server to come up. But when you go for Spring Boot and it is having its internal server, embedded server, so it doesn't even take a minute for the server to start up. So that's one thing. And then like I said, if I have to integrate JUnit or anything like Spring Security or anything, like I don't have to go searching for the jars for setting up the Spring Boot application. For if Spring Boot, I go to Spring Initializer, I select the security dependency, it automatically I can get everything. Now if I select the web dependency, it has a lot of things like the server, I said, like it has the JUnit framework classes also. So all that becomes very easy. Yeah, that's the major thing I found as the difference between using a normal Spring application and a Spring Boot application.
Okay, great. So did you think ever, like when you are talking, one word you have said that there is an embedded thing, embedded server is given by the Spring Boot. So what exactly the embedded server it is given? And did you think ever that if I can explicitly use that server, what could I have to do in my applications? So did you observe anywhere, anyhow, or any of the project, any of the POC you have thinking like that?
Okay, like if I do not want to use the embedded server and if I want to use something else?
Yes. So did you think like that?
Yeah, like
or not, or it is possible or not?
It is possible because we configure everything in Maven, right? So I can exclude I can put an exclude stack for this Tomcat server which comes by default. Okay, so I can exclude that and I can add a dependency for whatever server I want. So I can externally add a server if I want in Spring Boot application. So that's not a problem. And also even I think we can configure it, and generally when we start up the Spring application, right, we have this normal main method that gets called, correct? So if you if you have to go for some other server, external server, right, I think there is some configuration that we can do, like the main class that we have, which is annotated with Spring Boot application, it has to extend some I can't recollect the API, the interface it was, but some interface we have to implement so that it will recognize the external server and not go for the internal server. So we can do that. In short, we can configure external servers in Spring.
There are some external configuration we have to do to get the result it out. So not an issue. Thank you for that. Okay. So one more observation, like you told just now that the Spring main applications we are writing, right, for the Spring Boot. Okay. There is one annotation we are using on that. What exactly that annotation in the main class?
That's @Spring Boot application. So
what exactly the Spring Boot application does?
So it's a combination of three annotations. So they have clubbed all those three annotations into one single annotation. So that's basically split into three. That is, one is component scan, the second one is configuration, and the third one is auto configuration. So component scan, when you mark a particular component or a particular class with component scan. So what it does is and you can even specify a particular package that you want to scan. So all the classes within that package will get automatically recognized by your server, by your container. So that's about component scan. So when your main class, right, the Spring, which is annotated with Spring Boot application. So whatever is there within that package, right, within that package will all be recognized by your container. The second thing is configuration. So all the classes which are used for configurations, right? So all that, like if you mark anything with @configuration, all that will be automatically recognized by your container. And the third one is auto configuration. So it helps in configuring a lot of things automatically, like how what I told before, you don't have to manually configure servers, you don't have to manually configure a lot of things, right? So all those get auto configured. That's what is auto configuration about. So that's Spring Boot application is a combination of all.
Okay. Okay. So here you are saying that automatically it is configured and automatically it is taken care of by the Spring applications whenever we are going to annotate any applications you are talking about, right? So do you think ever that what exactly the background implementation that automatically it is doing it?
Sorry, I didn't get you.
You are saying that as we are annotate one interface or something like direct Spring Boot application, so it is binding 3 applications and again automatically it is doing their job, right?
Right.
So what exactly the background implementation it does, that automatic part?
Okay. I think what happens is like you have all the jars and everything which is defined in your Maven, right? So your dependencies are all marked in your Maven form XML, right? So it automatically downloads all the dependencies and your container is able to recognize those dependencies automatically. I think there's something called spring.factories which comes and I think I don't remember the exact folder, but that particular file has got all the dependencies listed, and your container is then in the background it is able to recognize all those dependencies which actually are coming through your Maven or form XML file.
Okay, fine. Have you faced something like in any of your Spring applications like the bean is not initialized? Any kind of, have you faced like that?
Correct.
So what exactly the means in case of some applications it is giving that and there is a bean not initialized. So what the area basically you are going to look into?
I think that should be because like you're trying to if you have a class and you are trying to inject a dependency into that class, like class A is having a dependency of class B, and then now you're not going to initialize that manually, right? In yours, when you opt for Spring Framework, you don't manually initialize that. But for the container to recognize that, for the container to dependency to inject that dependency, I think that particular component has to be marked with like some of the either @service or @component or whatever annotations we have. So I think this error should be because if we are missing out on annotating the component.
I just to trick out the question a little bit more. Assume suppose there is a class A that I have already initialized. Even also it is using it, but still it is giving me the bean not initialized. So what the particular point that I have to look into identify that?
Okay, so you're saying that
then the code wise if you are reviewing, you can see that everywhere it is initialized, but still it is not initializing. So some area is there that particularly we will look into it to identify what exactly it is happening. So did you know that one, that what exactly that area we look into it to resolve such kinds of issues?
Okay, so you're saying that like A is using B and B is marked with some of the annotation, but still we are getting that error.
Correct.
Okay. B is not initialized.
I am coming to the core Java. Yeah. So in the Java class designing principle, there is a word called coupling and cohesion. What basically these two things are there in the class designing?
Okay. So, okay, coupling I can see like how like if you have two classes, how closely they are related to each other. So, like how closely they are dependent on each other. For example, when you go for Spring framework, right, it allows dependency injection. So you're not, if you want to use an instance of B in A class, you don't need to do B is equal to new B in your A class, right? So those two classes, right, those are actually decoupled. So if you had done B is equal to new B for creating an instance in your A class, then it would have been like it is totally related to each other. Like every time, like any change you make in B, it is going to affect A. Okay, so but in this case, like if you go for Spring framework, like it will allow you to dependency inject, so you don't have to manually create instances. So that's about decoupling.
Samya, what are the rules basically you have to follow to write a class? That's called principle only, right?
If I have to write a class, what all should I follow?
Yes.
Okay. So okay. So first thing is like before I introduce a new class, like I can think of whether it can be extended from an existing class or not. Like should I always go and create a new class, or if that class is like a can be subclass from something, or subclass from an interface, I mean implemented from an interface. So like you can dynamically provide dependencies if you do that way. So that's one thing. Then second thing is like if you are writing, I mean the class should should be created for one particular functionality. As in, for example, I have a class which generates a report. Okay, it generates multiple types of reports.
Any kinds of basically things we have followed up that is called cohesion and coupling during writing any class?
Yes, like okay, so coupling, like in a way, like if I have to, I mean, if I do this subclassing thing, right? So your classes are not, you can do dynamic injection, right? So polymorphically. So that kind of helps in coupling, okay? And cohesion is like the methods that you write, right? It should be giving you should be doing one single functionality. Like you shouldn't club multiple things into one method when you're writing a method. Similarly, when you're writing a class, it should follow, I mean, if, for example, that's what I was trying to say, like if I have to write a class for...
Coming to next questions. Have you used any creational design pattern into any of the project?
I've used like factory pattern is being used. Then singleton pattern is also being used. Yeah, these two patterns I've used for from the creational part.
Okay. Any builder pattern have you used?
No, I can't think of anything right now.
Prototype design pattern?
Prototype? No, because we're not calling prototype. No. It's all like not explicitly prototype design pattern, but like when you come to Spring framework, right? Like by default we are using singleton, right? So for some classes we have So you can have multiple instances for that class, which will be available within your application or within your container. So that's what is prototyping about. Prototype spoke
Okay.
about.
Okay. 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 Great. Which version of Java basically you are using?
Project is using Java 7, but I've myself done work on Java 8.
Okay, you know Java 8, right? So you know the Java 8 features. What are the?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Okay. Okay. So there is one common features in Java 8 that mostly used into the application. What that feature is?
Feature, right? Java 8. Okay, that's mostly that what we use Java 8 is for Lambda functions, right? And Steam API. So that's the most commonly used feature in Java 8.
Okay. And what is the feature that introduced in the Java 8 that having a drawback, but still we are using for our applications? And what that drawback is? I am giving some, like many APIs are there. In the trading part, trading, the data time, collections, Lambda, all those are APIs that is developed in the Java 8 and it is introduced, right? So one of that feature that is introduced in Java 8, that is commonly used. Even also earlier we are using it, but still it is using as the Java 8 is provided. But some drawbacks are there on that features. We cannot do on top of that. So what exactly that? Any idea of that you have? Okay.
No idea. No, I can make a guess. Yes.
Fine, no problem. Okay. Have you used AOP in your application? In Spring AOP? Any of the projects?
No, AOP we are not using. Generally what we use AOP is for logging and everything, right? So, but it's not being used here.
Okay, not for the login actually, for the cost cutting control we are using it.
See that?
Fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Have this interceptors being used, so I think like that's one of the we can classify that as one of the common features, right? So intercepting the request. So I think that will also come under AOP only.
Yeah, correct. Okay, fine. Okay, I'm coming to some other part. I didn't suppose there are some API has developed. Already the application is developed.
Okay.
Some REST services are exposing on that. I do suppose the REST services A, REST services B, REST services C, three different services are exposed. Okay.
Okay.
And now there is a requirement came and you are going to call that APIs.
Okay.
E or C, whatever it is.
Okay.
So how basically you are going to consume it? What means when you are going to develop your application, it's a standard requirement is given to it to develop your own application and you are going to consume these services. Okay.
Okay.
So how you are going to implement that and what the technology stuff that basically you are going to include in your API?
Okay, so I need to develop REST APIs, new REST APIs, and so what all should I follow when I am going to develop a REST API, right?
No. REST API or SOAP API is already developed.
Okay.
Already they are in the applications. Now, we are going to develop another application where you are going to consume the existing REST APIs.
Okay.
And suppose you are using the React Next.js or something like that, right? You are consuming some REST APIs. But in the backend, suppose you are going to consume the same thing, same scenario, you are going to do the backend side. So what the thing you are going to follow up?
Okay. So, one way that we can do consuming the for the REST APIs, I think we can go for REST template which Spring provides. So you can specify the URL, the API URL that is exposed, and then like whatever is returned from there, we can consume it. Like using REST template, we can do that. Then for SOAP, we are consuming we have external application which is exposed as SOAP APIs. So we are consuming that. So for that, we have made a call using HTTP client which comes under Apache package. So we use that. So we have to check like what is a type of request, whether it's a GET or POST or what. Like HTTP client we are doing for in my project we are using that. And REST template in my application is like we make wherever there's a REST call that we make it from the client side. So client side we are using Ajax, but if you have to make a server side call to a REST API, then you can go for REST template. And I think even HTTP client allows you to do that. I've never tried that out, but REST template I'm sure we can do that.
Okay. So what did you understand by the asynchronous call or synchronous call of services?
Okay, so asynchronous call is like you make a call and you don't wait for the response, and you can continue doing whatever is the next task that you want to do. But synchronous call is like you're blocking your execution until you get the response from the server. So that's the synchronous call. So it goes one after the other. You cannot do multiple things randomly. You have to finish execution of one task before you start the next.
Okay, so for such kinds of scenario, it is going to happen when you are going to call the services. Assume suppose you are using the REST template and you are going to call on the API, but the API is not responding you. And it is not giving the error as well. So how you are going to handle it?
Okay. I'm not sure if we can kind of put some way to time it out. Never tried this, but if there is a way to time it out, like you wait for this much time before you get a response. If you're not getting it, then throw some exception or something like that, and manually throw an exception and then proceed with your work. I think we can do that way.
Okay. Have you used the service executor anywhere in your applications?
The executor service in my different executor service I've done for my one of my previous projects. We had three report generation processes which we had to do. So there we were doing executor service.
Okay. What exactly it is doing?
So executor service is like it's for asynchronous calls only. So you create multiple threads using executor service, and then each thread can pick a runnable or a callable task that you have, and then execute all those tasks simultaneously. So basically, like you create multiple threads. You define the number of threads. You can define the number of threads that you want when you're initializing the executor service, and then automatically when you do the service.submit, it will the threads which are created, right, they will pick one task after the other that you have created.
Okay, so callable feature have you used?
Yeah, there we were using callable only, not runnable. We were using callable there.
Okay. What exactly the callable feature is doing?
So callable, both runnable and callable are for executing the task only, but the only difference is that runnable does not return you anything, whereas callable can return you some value that you need.
I'm not asking about the callable and runnable. Callable feature feature class is there, FUTURE, callable feature in.
Callable future. Okay. I know about future, like it's for getting the value from the execution. Callable feature, like, not sure about that.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay. Okay. Okay, one more question on the Spring.
Yes.
Can you define a bean of an interface?
Okay. If we can, like, but I think you'll have to implement that interface and then mark that bean as some component. That's how we generally do, right?
Okay.
So you have an interface and then you have to directly mark that as a component. That's what you're asking?
No. Basically, we are defining the bean in the Spring, right? And just we are doing the auto-where or something like that to call the bean. Am I correct?
Correct.
Assume suppose some interface is there and some implementation classes are there for implementation. Suppose interface I is there and
Fine.
class A, B, C are implemented the I.
Fine.
And A, B, C having the different functionalities.
Correct.
And that's already implemented. We don't know which service means if I call the interface, which service will call and what time it is. It may be called A, it may be called B, it may be called C of the implementation class. So
Right.
I am going to use the interface A along with the particular function of the implemented class. Assume suppose implemented class is B.
Okay.
So how do I achieve it in the Spring?
Okay. So you're going to auto-wire for interface I, right? And but you want to use feature of like some method from the implemented class. So I think you can go for qualified annotation there, and then like it can mark the type as B probably.
Okay, if the qualifier is not defined into the method name, bean, means well the bean is defining then.
Sorry, I didn't get that part.
Assume suppose the qualifier name is not defined while implemented the implemented.
Okay. No, but I think we can.
Assume suppose method is foo for everywhere. Okay, so if I call foo, means it will call the A of foo or A.foo or B.foo or C.foo, right?
Okay.
So in that cases, how do I achieve the functionality of only one particular implemented class, that is B?
When you auto-wiring that interface in your class, say the class which is making use of that interface, there itself I think we can mark the qualifier, right? Or I think qualifier with type I think we can do. What the type of
the qualifier name basically if you are defining the bin name, correct? If bin name is defined, then we can give the qualifier name and we can call that. Am I correct?
Okay, so like in the if A is implementing I, so on top of A you will have to mark it with @qualifier. That's what you're saying?
No, the bin bin that the bin name is there. Then only you can, when you are doing the qualifier name, that particular bin will call.
Okay.
So in that case, the bin name is not defining in the method, any of the method, in any of the classes. In that cases, how do I achieve it? Have you ever used the proxy factory bin in the Spring?
No, I've not used.
Okay, then fine. Okay. Okay, coming to the SQL part. Suppose while we are writing the the some clauses, right? Like from clauses, where clauses, group by clauses, heading clauses, order by clauses. So the order of execution of these clauses, what it is following, what is the logical process it has followed by the Oracle? Which comes second, which comes third?
Okay. So like first, like if you're writing a select statement, the select will come first, then select star from. Okay, so from clause, then you'll have the table name, and then you have if you have to provide a condition, you'll go for where. Okay, and whatever the condition is. Now
No, my query, I think I'm not able to clear you. I'm not talking about the query. I'm talking about the execution plan of the clauses. As you suppose I'm writing select star from table where some condition, group by some condition, order by some condition. Okay, I gave it like that.
Okay.
So these are the clauses where I use the select, I use the from, I use the where, I use the group by, I use the order by. These are the clauses I use in the select query, right?
Correct. Okay, got it.
So the execution sequence of these clauses, what exactly it is written by the Oracle?
Okay. I think like if you have group by, then the first thing that gets executed should be group by, I believe, because only after grouping we do the functions, right? Aggregate functions or something. Like if you have to take a max on particular list of if you are dividing your table into multiple parts using group by, and then you have to fetch maximum out of each group. So first thing should be group by, I think, and within that group, if you have to apply some function, then you if you have to say find the max of something, then you'll that should be the function that gets executed, followed by the select part. And if there is order by, so group by this, so like so if it is like the max, then you group it and then you order it, and then you have to take the max out of it, right? So the max value out of it. So it should be like you group by, like first you'll have the condition, then that is where you're having, then you group it. You like apply the group by clause, then you should be applying the order by clause, and then I think it will take the function that you're going to apply, and then the select part. I think that should be the plan, I guess.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So have you done before that code review, or any of the team is doing your code review? What do you understood by the peer-to-peer review, basically?
Okay, so we do in our project, we do have code reviews, peer-to-peer reviews. So the code that I write is actually reviewed by our on-site. Okay, and the code that is done by my junior associates, I review that code. That's how we are doing in this project. Okay, so there are a set of rules which are defined by our client. So we follow those guidelines while doing the reviews.
Okay, apart from the rules, what your client has defined in the standard principle of Java, what the thing basically we look into for a code review? Assume suppose your junior has developed some REST services, okay, that have the implementation of entire functionality from starting point to hitting the DB and DB to fetching that records and publishing into a bin and again exposing into the XML or JSON format. Okay. So entire functionality is written. Then when you are going to review that code, what the basic thing you have to review?
Okay, basic things if it comes for REST, okay, like one thing should be like user authentication should be provided when you go for REST, when you're exposing your REST API. Then okay, if we are going to create some new functionalities, like I said, like you shouldn't be having redundant code in that functionality. You should try to reuse the code as much as possible. So modularize your code as much as possible and remove a redundant piece of code which is there. Then that's another thing. Then what we do is like the way we define the classes or the variables or the methods. Like if you are going to write a POJO, then you'll have to define the properties within the POJO as private and then expose it via getters and setters. So all the access modifiers should be applied properly. So if the new method that you're writing is not being called from an external class, you should be marking that as private. That's one thing. Yeah, and
basically mode of visibility that properly used or not, that we are going to review, right?
Yeah, that's that we do, and redundant code also, like
okay,
you should
redundant code, visibility, redundant code, and again.
correct, and you shouldn't be having a lot of logic put in one single method. The method should be handling just one functionality and not clubbing everything together. And make use of interfaces or abstract classes as much as possible.
You are not remembering one thing, the best practice of the Java. I just given a hint to you. What's the best practice of the Java class? Did you notice? Means the handling the null in the properly in the applications, handling the connections properly in the application, resource closing happen properly or not, exception is handling properly or not. These are the basic principles, right? Basic thing that you need to validate. Apart from this, that is providing unique. Apart from this, in case of any kinds of Sonar or Textile, you are going to integrate it in the deployment thing. These are the basically review you are doing it, right?